I have in my hand here a dual arm support bracket for mounting a flat TV screen onto a wall. Okay, now it's part of a range of TV brackets that we have on the tvtrade.ie website. This is a slight step up from the single arm bracket which we have here. The advantage of this over this single arm bracket is it's longer and it's more flexible, particularly if you're mounting a TV in a corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to open up this box here and just show you what comes inside it, and then I'll give an overview of exactly how to mount this onto the wall. Okay, so the first thing here is just to see what comes in it. So this bracket here, this is a bracket that will mount onto the back of the satellite dish, or onto the back of the television itself. Next thing here is a set of instructions. We have a bag of componentry here, just put there. We also, if we look down further, this is a set which you're going to display in a minute, and also some nuts and bolts with it. And then we have the main bracket here that will actually mount onto the wall, and you can see it comes almost fully pre-assembled there. Okay, so what I'm going to do at that point in time is I'm just going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to show one of these boxes that I have partly disassembled and reassembled since. Okay, so the first thing here is, if we look at the actual television here that we're going to mount, this is a small flat screen television, but the first thing we'll notice is that there's holes pre-drilled and they're threaded. And almost all televisions that are available on the market in Ireland meet the VISA standard, which means that holes will be drilled either at a 75, 100mm or a 200mm offset. And the great thing about this bracket here is it covers all those main television sizes, okay, or all those things. So if we look at this bracketry here, if we look from the center to center of these holes, it's 75mm. If we look at the center from here to here, it's 100mm. Now, if we had a larger television that we decide we're going to mount with this bracket, we actually can come along and use this set, which I displayed a minute ago, which we actually come along and just mount these on, and we extend it out to the four corners. And when we do this, the center to center on that will actually be 200mm. Okay? So it's very, very flexible in terms of what it can be used for, and these nuts and bolts are specific for that purpose. Okay, so when we come along here, we have to make a decision then of what way are we going to mount this on, right? So the first thing here we're going to see is that this is, it's actually a 75mm on this one, right? So if we came along and we made a decision for whatever reason that we're going to use spacers and space off these things here, we could use the longer bolts, but as we're not going to use the spacers, we'll simply use the shorter ones here. So we just line it up here, and we can see all four holes line up beautifully like that. Now, in terms of additional tools we're going to need for a disassembly, the key thing here is we need a drill with an 8mm drill bit on it, and we'll also need a Phillips screwdriver here as well. Now, a point I'm going to make here is that it's important, we'll say, that you put this bracket on the right way. You could put it on upside down and it'd still go on, but it obviously wouldn't work. So what we need is, we need this pin here to be pointing downwards, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come along and I'm going to put in these four screws now. Yeah, I blinded myself there, that hole. Okay, that's the first one. I'm going to do the one on the diagonal of it now. Now, at this point here, we'd actually be in a position to actually drop this television onto a bracket that's mounted on the wall, and then simply slide in down this mechanism here. Now, there's a roller mechanism here, so you can see there's a lot of flexibility here in terms of how we can twist this over and back and achieve different angles on it. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate that better when we have it in position. So what we'll do next is I'm going to turn to the next part of it, is actually mounting the bracket on the wall. So if we come back here and look at a complete set here, we can see here that we have two plugs and two long screws, okay? And you can actually see that the screws are considerably longer than the plugs itself. So you drill a much longer hole than normally needed, pushing the plugs, and then screw all the way through, and screw right past the end of the plug into the wall. So So if we come along here, we can see a cool thing about this wall here. Now this is on a mass concrete wall, okay? And that specifically, it's come to this. If you want to mount it on a studded wall, things like this, you'll need to use, we'll say, a stud finder, and you need to use also special screws and things like that, because you need to have mounted directly onto the timber and make sure that it's safely mounted onto the wall. So in terms then of what we will do is, we can use this spirit level here that comes built into it, and what I normally do is I just hold it up, I'll gauge it with the spirit level, and I'll use a marker then, simply to mark the top and the bottom hole, take away the bracket, drill the 2 holes, and then push in the plug and bolt, and use again the Phillips screwdriver, which I demonstrated earlier, just to screw this all the way in, okay? So then we have it locked firmly into position like that, so we have the bracket effectively mounted on the wall. Now at that point we can actually just come along, and we can just pick up this television here. So you can see it's curved in terms of the angle here, and it simply drops into position like that. So if we look then, and we can see the type of flexibility, in the arm itself, we can actually fold it over, or we can actually fold it back on itself, so it can just go directly onto the wall like that, so very tight in like that. We can bring it straight out, we can rotate it. For a smaller television, we can rotate it a full 180 degrees in both directions. And you can see as well, if we're mounting it closer to the corner, it'll let us come out in one direction and then out in the other. So that's it. Obviously, the larger the television that you're mounting on it, the less the flexibility on it, simply because it'll be closer to the wall on it. But it gives you an idea. And then in terms of tilt, you can tilt it up like this, and you can tilt it all the way down like this. It's extremely good. Now, one safety feature that's on it that's particularly important when you're using with larger TVs, there's a little stopper here, which you can actually just push in here. You can push from the front to the back. So normally what you want to do there is, and just push it in, and it's hard to get back out, so I'm not going to push it all the way through, but you just lock it into position then, and that would just mean that if somebody came from below and pushed up on the television, they wouldn't be able to pull it up because you'd have that stopper locking it in position there. Okay, so that's anyway an overview of the dual arm support bracket that's available on tvtray.ie.